In 1975, Bill Gates decided to drop out of Harvard University. At the time, his decision was heavily criticized by everyone around him. His family and friends thought he was crazy for giving up on one of the best universities in the world. But their opinion quickly changed when Gates and his friend Paul Allen turned their small software company called Dropout into a multi-billion-dollar giant known as Microsoft. Today, Microsoft is one of the most valuable companies in the entire world, with a market cap of over $2 trillion. This begs the question, how did Bill Gates build such a massive software empire? Well, that's what we're going to answer in today's video. But before we start, I have a question for you. In your opinion, what is the most important quality of a great leader? Is it charisma, intelligence, or work ethic? Let us know in the comments below, because we're really curious about your thoughts. Also, if you like to be inspired by stories of successful people, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Taking a look back, Bill Gates was born on October 28, 1955, in the city of Seattle. From an early age, it was clear that he wasn't a normal child. While other kids played outside, Bill would rather stay inside and build things. For example, when he was just 11 years old, Gates created a digital program that helped keep track of his school attendance. You see, Bill was always tinkering around with computers. He would spend countless hours reading books about programming and teaching himself how to code. And this self-taught approach would end up defining his career. Although Gates showed a strong interest in computers from an early age, he didn't immediately dive into the tech industry after high school. In fact, he attended Harvard University in the hopes of becoming a professional businessman. However, during his sophomore year, Gates teamed up with his childhood friend, Paul Allen, to create a software company called Dropout. The idea was that they could use software to help large corporations analyze traffic patterns. At first, this business didn't have anything to do with computers. It was simply a way for Gates to make some extra money while in college. So he continued to attend classes and work on his business at the same time. However, Gates soon realized that he had made a huge mistake. Although his professors were brilliant individuals, Gates didn't feel like he was learning anything that was actually useful to him. Instead of being taught by experienced professionals, Gates felt like he was just being taught more theoretical concepts. So, in 1975, Gates decided to drop out of Harvard and go all in on his software business. Ironically, his parents tried everything they could to convince him to stay in school. But their efforts were in vain. Just a few months after dropping out of Harvard, Bill Gates' company became incredibly successful. So why exactly did Gates decide to drop out of Harvard? Well, the honest answer is that Gates likely dropped out because he simply didn't like school. He found the teachers to be uninspiring and the curriculum to be irrelevant to his interests. This isn't to say that Gates was a bad student, though, in fact, he excelled in math class and scored a perfect 1600 on his SATs. The problem was just that Gates found school boring, and he didn't think it was worth his time. Luckily for Gates, he had the guts to follow his heart and drop out of school. Otherwise, he may have ended up working in a completely different field today. With that said, though, Gates surely couldn't have predicted how insanely successful his software company would become. Within a few years, his company grew exponentially and eventually merged with another company called Microsoft to create Microsoft. By 1986, Microsoft went public at a valuation of $60 million. And by the end of the decade, Gates was worth several $billion. As you can see, Gates' net worth skyrocketed throughout the 1990s. And by the year 2000, Gates was worth $100 billion. To put into perspective just how wealthy this made Gates, consider the fact that he was worth more than the GDP of entire countries. At the time, only 47 of the world's 193 countries had a higher GDP than Gates. Now, this doesn't mean that Gates single-handedly carried Microsoft to the top. After all, success was a team effort. But it would be unfair to downplay Gates' contributions either. In fact, many of Microsoft's early employees credit Gates for the company's success. For example, one of Microsoft's early employees named Bob Frank said that Gates' vision for the company was crystal clear. He knew exactly what needed to be done and was willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. Another former employee named Nathan Myhrvold echoed these statements and described Gates as an unrelenting perfectionist. He was never satisfied with the status quo and was always pushing for more. This relentless drive is probably what allowed Microsoft to become one of the largest software companies in the world. That being said, though, Gates didn't stop with just building Microsoft. In the late 1990s, Gates set his sights on the internet. He strongly believed that the internet was going to take over the world, so he wanted to get involved. In fact, Gates once said that the arrival of the internet was a bigger deal than the invention of the transistor. Gates' investment thesis was quite simple. All of the world's information was going to be put onto the internet and accessed through computers. So Gates thought that it would be a great idea to develop a web browser that people could use to access this information. He even hired a man named Rick Yarrow to lead the development of Microsoft's web browser. However, Gates ended up making a massive blunder. You see, instead of allowing Yarrow to develop a world-class product, Gates tried to micromanage every aspect of the project. He would constantly berate Yarrow for missing deadlines and failing to meet his expectations. This caused Yarrow to quit within just 6 months. As you can guess, this was a massive blow to Microsoft. As they lost their most qualified web browser developer, things didn't get much better from there either. Microsoft's first version of Internet Explorer came out in 1995. But it wasn't until 1996 that Internet Explorer gained popularity. By then, Netscape Navigator was already dominating the market, so Microsoft was far behind. Nevertheless, Gates remained determined to catch up. By 1998, Microsoft had released Internet Explorer 5.0, which was a significant improvement over previous versions. This version included features such as cookies and JavaScript support, which made it more user-friendly. Despite these improvements, though, Internet Explorer still wasn't able to catch up to Netscape Navigator. That all changed in 1999, though, when Microsoft released Internet Explorer, this version was a major success as it was bundled with Windows 98. By the end of 1999, Internet Explorer controlled 57% of the browser market. But Gates didn't stop there. In 2000, Gates announced that Internet Explorer was going to be free for all users, which increased its popularity even further. Over the next few years, Gates continued to invest billions into research and development, which allowed them to roll out a ton of new products and services. Some of their most popular products include Windows Vista, Office 2007, and Xbox Live. These products were game changers, and they allowed Microsoft to maintain its dominant position in the market. However, as the 2000s drew to a close, it became apparent that Microsoft's growth was beginning to stagnate. Their new products weren't nearly as popular as their older ones, and investors began to worry about the future of the company. This led Gates to step down as CEO in 2000 and become Chief Software Architect. In this role, Gates had more freedom to pursue personal projects without having to worry about the day-to-day operations of the company. One of these projects was the development of Windows XP. which ended up being one of the most successful versions of Windows ever. In fact, Windows XP was so popular that it sold more than 400 million copies. After the release of Windows XP, Gates began to focus more on his philanthropic efforts. In 2006, Gates and his wife Melinda French Gates created the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust, which aimed to address global issues such as poverty and disease. Since then, the foundation has donated billions of dollars to various causes. These days, Gates is mostly known for his philanthropy rather than his work at Microsoft. But it's important to remember that without Gates, Microsoft wouldn't even exist. He single-handedly built Microsoft into a multi-billion-dollar company and helped make software one of the most important parts of our economy. Now, we'd love to hear your opinion on this topic. Do you think that Bill Gates is a genius, or do you think that he simply got lucky? Either way, he's clearly a highly intelligent individual who defied the odds. So let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We hope you learned something new. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any new videos.